Hi and welcome to the South China Morning Post Racing Podcast for today, Wednesday, 25th of November. I'm Alan Aitken and today's the day when we find out who are the invited runners for the 4 Cathay Pacific International races on December 13. That announcement to be made by the Jockey Club just prior to racing at Happy Valley tonight. Well, in the news, of course, was Sunday's sprint trial winner, Happy Zero, and we were the first in the South China Morning Post to bring you the news that Happy Zero will be switched to the Hong Kong Mile on December 13, leaving John Moore with One World as his major sprint aspirant for this year. Speaking of the sprint, the American horse Cannonball, who caught everybody's attention at Royal Ascot earlier this year and is headed around the world in these kinds of races, onto Australia after here. And he arrived on Friday, but did arrive with a little bit of a temperature, a high white cell count, and connections were able to be giving him a few days rest after his arrival to let that settle down. And very important that they arrived here quite so early as they have done, because had he been close to the race with those problems, he might have been a doubtful starter. But with 3 weeks before the race, plenty of time for Cannonball to recover, and no doubt there'll be more news of him in the run-up to the Hong Kong Sprint. Well, also on the international scene, the supplementary entries for the races, and they closed finally yesterday. And apart from Happy Zero joining the mile entries, his stablemate White Jade was put into Hong Kong Mile along with David Ferraris trained Fleet Command, who finished 5th in the mile trial on Sunday. In the Cup, Mr Medici was the additional local entry, but also added supplementaries for Queen Spumante from Japan and the North American horse Einstein. In the Vase, the late entries were Packing Winner, Ambitious General, James Zena and Jackpot Delight, all local runners. Well, Wednesday, of course, is On the Rails Day, and you'll find the rails column inside the sports section of today's South China Morning Post, and I take a look at John Moore and Darren Beedman deciding that the mile is a better option for Happy Zero, and to weigh up how that might go. And I look at one historical parallel to the Happy Zero switch. Also in the rails, a whinge about the international classifications and how they're being produced, and you'll find all of that in the rails in today's paper or online at www.racing.scmp.com. To Happy Valley now, and the night's feature comes up in race 5. It's the Class 3 1,000 metre sprint, the St Andrews Quake, and I can see a return to the winners list for number 8, Young Label. Now, this horse looked very promising in winning his first start in June last year, but he's been fairly difficult to train, and Armin Lee has had his hands full getting him to the races at all. He's only had 4 subsequent runs and has performed well, but obviously not able to go right on with the early promise that he showed. He's first up again from a break tonight, but with the benefit of Zach Purton and Gate 1, I think he can take out the feature. It's race 5, the St Andrews Quake. The guide tip is number 8, Young Label. Jockey Challenge, and after 4 Jockey Challenge wins in a row, you might have thought that Brett Preble would be favourite tonight, but he's had to settle for third elect at 6.5, behind top apprentice Matthew Chadwick at 2.8 and Douglas White at 4.0. Chadwick is back in form with 4 winners in the past week. He's earned himself a suspension after next Sunday's meeting, but in the meantime, he certainly looks the man to beat at Happy Valley tonight. His first couple of rides, well, they've got chances, but they're a little bit vulnerable. However, I do think that his final 4 rides all have very strong prospects of winning, including the very interesting Crystal Magnum, who's only been in sprints to date but steps up to a more suitable trip over 1650 metres tonight. He's the man to beat, Matthew Chadwick, 2.8. We might do better than that if one or two of his early mounts get beaten, so it might be the strategy to be patient, but Matthew Chadwick, the man to beat. Best bet time, and mine comes up early in the night, and it is that man Prebble, race 3, number 3, a very rare ride for Prebble for top trainer John Moore. With Darren Beedman suspended, Prebble goes on to Season Links, and I think he's really going to suit this horse, who can be a difficult ride. He had no luck at his most recent outing, and I think from a better draw tonight, Season Links is the horse they have to beat. He's my best, race 3, number 3, Season Links. Well, that's it for the South China Morning Post Racing Podcast. And if you want to find out more on the stories you've heard here, take a look online at www.racing.scmp.com or pick up your copy of today's South China Morning Post with the lift out guide to tonight's Happy Valley program. I'm Alan Aitken. Good punting.